You hear these terms thrown around all the time, right? AI, machine learning, deep learning, they're everywhere. But what do they actually mean? And, how do they really truly work? Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and get to the core of how machines actually learn. And it all starts with a surprisingly simple question.
So think about it for a second. How would you teach your computer to know what a cat is? Your first instinct might be to program a bunch of rules, right? Like, if it has pointy ears and whiskers and fur, then it's a cat. But you can see how this gets super complicated, like, immediately. What about a cat without pointy ears? What about a drawing of a cat? It's a mess.
Well, here's the mind-blowing part. The modern answer is, you don't. You don't write the rules. Instead, you just show the computer thousands or even millions of pictures of cats, and you let it figure out the patterns for itself. This is the fundamental, game-changing idea that powers almost all modern AI.
And this quote just nails it. This is really the core concept of what we call machine learning. It's not about giving a computer a perfect step-by-step recipe. It's about giving it the ability to learn from experience, just like we do.
Now, this whole idea, it's not brand new. It's actually been bubbling up for decades. Way back in the 50s, you had the first dreams of artificial intelligence. Then in the 80s, machine learning started to get some real momentum. But it was in the 2010s, with a powerful new technique called deep learning, that things really exploded, kicking off the AI boom that we're all living through right now.
So, how do all these buzzwords fit together? It's actually pretty simple. Think of artificial intelligence as the big, overall goal, the whole idea of making machines smart. Machine learning is a specific way to achieve that goal, a method that focuses on learning from data. And deep learning? That's an even more specialized and incredibly powerful type of machine learning. They all fit together like nesting dolls.
Okay, so we've established that machines learn from data. But what does that actually look like? Let's pop the hood and get into the mechanics of it.
Let's start with a really basic example. Say we want to predict house prices. We'd start with data like this. A bunch of houses where we know the size and we also know what they sold for. Because we have both the question and the correct answer, this is called supervised learning. We're kind of supervising the machine by giving it a cheat sheet with all the right answers.
So step one is easy. We just feed all of this historical data into our learning algorithm. You can pretty much imagine it plotting every single house as a dot on a graph, with size on one axis and price on the other.
And this is where the magic really happens. The algorithm looks at all those dots on the graph and tries to find the relationship between them. In this case, it's trying to draw the best fit line that captures the general trend. It's essentially learning the rule for itself. Hey, it looks like as the size goes up, the price tends to go up in this very specific way.
Now, this whole supervised learning thing comes in two main flavors. When you're predicting a number that can be anything along a scale, like a price, that's called regression. But if you're trying to predict a specific category, like is this a picture of a house or a townhouse, that's called classification. Same basic idea, just a different type of question.
Okay, so finding a simple line to predict house prices, that's one thing. But what about recognizing a face in a photo or understanding what you're saying? For really complex problems like that, we need something way more powerful.
Because here's the thing, not all data can be separated by a nice, simple, straight line. Look at this classic problem from logic. You literally can't draw one single line to neatly separate these two groups. This is where those simple models completely fall apart. And it's where we need to take inspiration from the most powerful learning machine on the planet, the human brain. And the inspiration is just brilliant. On the left, you've got a biological neuron, a brain cell. It gets signals from other cells and decides if it should fire off its own signal. On the right, you've got the artificial version. It's basically a tiny little math function that takes in some numbers, weighs how important they are, and spits out an answer. You link millions of these things together, and you get what's called an artificial neural network.
And that brings us right to deep learning. The deep part, it's not as mysterious as it sounds. It just means we're using a neural network that has many layers of these artificial neurons stacked one after the other. It's this depth that gives the network the power to learn incredibly complex and subtle patterns from raw data.
This is where it gets really amazing. So when you show a deep network a picture of a face, the very first layer might only learn to see simple stuff, like pixels, just light and dark spots. But the next layer takes that information and learns to combine pixels into edges and curves. The layer after that combines those edges into parts, like an eye or a nose. And finally, the top layer puts all those parts together to recognize, hey, that's a face. Each layer learns something more complex from the layer before it. So, this isn't just some abstract theory. This hierarchical way of learning is the engine behind so many technologies we totally take for granted now. Let's take a look at where this stuff is already changing the world.
Every single time you use a voice assistant, or get a movie recommendation on a streaming service, or see your photos automatically tagged, yep, that's a deep learning model working behind the scenes. It's the invisible brain classifying things, understanding language, and predicting what you might want to see next.
And the impact goes way beyond convenience. I mean, in medicine, these very same techniques are being used to spot cancer cells in medical scans, sometimes more accurately than a human doctor. They're helping find new drugs and diagnose diseases earlier. The potential here is just absolutely life-changing.
And of course, there's the stuff that feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Self-driving cars completely depend on deep learning to see and make sense of the chaotic world around them, spotting pedestrians, staying in their lane, and reading traffic signs, all in real time.
So you might be wondering, why did all of this seem to happen so suddenly? Well, this chart right here, this shows the Big Bang moment for modern AI. In 2012, a deep learning model entered a huge image recognition contest, and it didn't just win, it absolutely demolished the competition, slashing the error rate. This was the proof everyone needed. The world took notice, and the AI boom began for real.
So, after all of that, what's the one big idea you should really walk away with from all this? Let's boil it all down.
This is it. This is the big idea. We've shifted from trying to hand-code every single rule for a complex problem to instead building systems that can learn the rules for themselves, just by looking at examples. It's a totally different way of thinking about programming.
And it's pretty wild to remember that this entire revolution is inspired by that thing sitting inside your head. The human brain has somewhere around 100 billion neurons, all interconnected, all learning. Our artificial networks are way simpler, of course, but they're built on that very same beautiful principle.
Which really leaves us with one last massive question. We've managed to create machines that don't just follow our instructions, but can learn and discover patterns for themselves. As these systems get more and more powerful, the real question isn't just what we'll do with them, but what new things will they teach us? What patterns might we find that we've missed all this time? That's the thought I'll leave you with. Thanks for tuning in.